So every Tuesday night, when the house goes quiet, my anxiety fills in. I'm a veteran educationist, and yet here I am, notes spread out, pen shaking, sheets and sheets of case studies on gender sensitizations, they all spread out, which eventually will get into my work bag. Tomorrow at 7:45 a.m., I will push open a heavy door and walk into a room where I'm not expected. I will be met by a sea of captains and senior officers. And 98% of the times, I am the only woman there. I am the outsider element of this industry. I continue walking through the door as I carry the 2% weight of purpose of approximately 6,500 Indian women seafarers who are in active service. I don't just walk into a classroom, I walk into a wall of stereotypes. I feel the weight of their judgment even before I say a good morning. I set it in, I can see it in the closed arms and the skeptical glances that they give me, and probably thinking, what could she be telling us about the sea? So I must find the courage to speak into the silence, knowing that for many of these men, my presence is a disruption. It is an interruption to the world they have always known, male-oriented. My hands are adjusting with the projector lens again, and the room is waiting for me to begin. So I hear this little voice in my head saying, "Come on, Kusum, go on, breathe." And that's what I do, because this is not just a story. This is the story of success of the initiative of Sagar Mein Samman by the DGS. So I press enter and I begin. I don't talk about easy things. I put the elephant on the table. The biases, the silence, the stereotypes, probably the high sea piracy areas, and some even the war zones. I say periods, and these leaders look at the floor because they've been taught that a woman's biology is a shameful secret, rather than a logistical reality of a modern 2026 crew. I talk about patriarchy, not as a political buzzword, but as an invisible cage that tells these men that they need to be stoic. They need to be detached or inflexible to be real leaders. So by mid-morning, the friction picks up. A hand goes up. "Ma'am, aren't you just trying to be biased towards the male seafarers? Or aren't you trying to imprint your mindset onto us?" So I look them in the eye and I say, "So when you've spent a century behind closed curtains, a little silver of that sunlight feels like a flare. And I'm here to ensure that when you lead everyone. Because a leader who is blinded by stereotypes is a leader who is unprepared for the future of work, unprepared for the 21st century. Why do I care so much? Well, I do. Many reasons. The first one is the story of silence of the bridge shared by a second officer. She said, it was 0300 hours, 150,000-ton vessel is sailing through the Indian Ocean. On the bridge, the silence is heavy. The second officer is staring at the ARPA. She's mentally exhausted. Earlier that day, a senior officer made a joke about her in the mess room. It was met with silence from other officers and the crew, and that felt like a verdict for her. Now in the dark of the bridge, Every shadow felt like a question mark. She was not navigating a storm externally. She was navigating social exclusion internally as well. She was performing the double watch. That's automatic identification systems that can enhance the safety of the ship. Watch 2 is constantly monitoring her social safety, calculating which alleyways she could avoid so that she can avoid certain crew, and how to decline an offer by a senior officer without offending him. She's exhausted. Not tired from a watch 1, mind you, she is tired from the double watch, the invisible task of monitoring her personal safety. This double watch is about operational risks as well. So a brain occupied by watch 2 is a brain that is more likely, about 20% more likely to miss out a detail of watch 1. In watch 2, she's watching the mood of the captain. She's watching the tone in the mess, and she's also watching the security of her cabin door. My another reason to go through this Tuesday night dread is my life, my home, my family. And I owe my deepest gratitude to the sea. These men in my classroom, they are brothers of the man I love and married. So I push open that heavy door of stereotypes every Wednesday because the future of work needs leaders who our daughters and our sisters can sail safely, mentally, physically, emotionally, and without biases and stereotypes. But in every class, something happens towards the mid-end of the 2 days. The arms uncross. There is laughter. There are smiles and sharing and constant discussions and questions because we are now operating in safe spaces. As I continue doing the stressometer activities, gender and sex worksheets, communication skills activities, breathing techniques. We're talking of Sagar Mein Yog to them. We are doing Sagar Mein Samman. Everything is going as per the plan. The gender sensitization curriculum, the 12 modules, all are working fabulously well. And the officers and the captains, they do the role play, the case studies. The bias comments turn into questions. And almost every single seafarer, the same skeptical, untrusting officer comes up to me and says, "Thank you, ma'am. We never looked at it that way. We never looked at that perspective." These captains and officers, they know how to maintain a hull. They know how to, calculate trim and stability and how to navigate through a force 10 gale. But when we talk about the human element, specifically the blind spots in our current charts, that's periods and patriarchy, we still need a lot of catching up to do. Periods, a biological reality for a fast-growing portion of our workforce in the maritime industry, and 50% of the population of our country. It cannot be an unplanned incident. Bhagyashree Ogle, she's a second engineer. She had completed her 4 months on the ship, and because of an emergency situation, the ship did not touch any port for the next 4 months. So she had not planned it that way. All her sanitary napkins got over. So she made these indigenous sanitary pads on board. But what she shared after that was, it was not about putting together of handmade sanitary pads, but it was more than the physical discomfort, it was the mental trauma that she still recalls. is a physical discomfort and a distraction from her watch one. So this was the double watch for her. So it's no different than all of us sailing or the ship sailing with a clogged filter. We often mistake a patriarchal command for tradition and toughness. An overly rigid, male-centric hierarchy is like hidden rust in the ballast tanks. It looks solid on the outside, but it eats away at the structure or the integrity of the team. When we lead through a lens of patriarchy, we create a culture where people are afraid to come and approach you, or they're afraid to come and speak up. Now, I want you to picture a girl, visualize that she's currently standing on the deck of a container ship in the middle of the Indian Ocean. It's 2 a.m., and there is no land in sight. She has no cell service, and the only sound is the hail cutting through the water. She's surrounded by thousands of tons of steel and the crushing weight of the dark ocean. She's thousands of miles away from your kitchen table, your hugs, and your daily life. On this ship, she's in charge. She's tired. She's exhausted. She's salt-stained, and she's doing the work that would break most of us on land. Now think of one specific word you want her to hear in that moment of isolation and loneliness. Just one word of encouragement, just one word of love and pride. When captains raise their hand to ask how to normalize periods on board, or they share how disposal systems for sanitary napkins on their ships work, treating periods as a waste management rather than a woman's secret, the stigma starts to vanish. And how emotional safety works on their ships. They're not weakening the crowd, they're strengthening the vessel. Transformation begins when we make our ships positive, period, positive ship. When we treat menstrual health as a logistical checklist item, no different than provisions, no different than fuel, fresh water, or spare parts, captains, officers, crew have the power to ensure when a woman seafarer climbs up the gangway, she is no longer carrying the heavy sea bags of stigma, the strength stigma, the distraction stigma, the biology stigma, diversity stigma, or the maternity bias. When the arms uncross, hands go up for questions, I know a change is happening. I'm addressing a full spectrum of the industry captains and officers. And these officers with salt in their boots bring frontline experiences. Every week we have 24 of them bringing frontline experiences, which we need to know how to use those experiences. The real world truth into that classroom, which nobody asked them about. So when they ask, how do we lead better? I see a posture of defense perish. In its place, I see something revolutionary, hands going up. There is a reflection process that goes on. At least it starts off. It starts off from that moment. Eventually, they will carry this sentiment back home with them. They will carry it to the communities, and they will carry it to the ship that they are sailing on with women on board. And let me tell you, it's worth it. It's worth it, doing this week on week. They say that the sea is a harsh mistress. But for centuries, the world forgot that the sea is also a mother. She's a provider and the world's greatest equalizer. Because the ocean doesn't have a voice. But if it would, it wouldn't be asking for your gender. It would be asking for your resilience. It would be asking for your resolve. And if you can steer, you are the captain. So every one of us here experiences an element of shipping in our daily lives. It's from a pin to an aeroplane, to a Brazilian coffee that we sip, or to those delicious olives on our pizzas. So let's try to understand, how the supply chain that works for, for all of us. Everyone, please look at your shoes. Feel the fabric of your shirt. Touch your phone. Now, if you believe that this item was grown, mined, or manufactured in a different country and traveled across thousands of miles of salt water to get to you, please raise your hands. You are standing on the shoulders of seafarers who braved cyclones while we slept. This room is standing because of a global heartbeat that never stops. Now, if you believe that the hands steering those ships should include the most resilient women in our country, raise your hands. Thank you. Look at this commitment. They aren't just joining a career, they're joining the lifeblood of humanity, choosing the life of salt and steel. So to every young woman in this room, do not let anyone tell you that you are too fragile for the sea. You are made of the same stardust as the navigation charts. Captain Deepti Singh, who says that there's no view on earth more beautiful than the one from the bridge of a ship she commands. The tide is turning. The ocean is waiting. So take the helm. These actually are the reasons why I go through the Tuesday night drudgery, or dread, you can say, every week, week after week. Thank you.